After the murder of King Agamemnon in a conspiracy organized by his wife Clytemnestra and her lover Aegisthus, the couple declared themselves the rulers of Mycenae and formalized the claim through their marriage. However, not everyone in the kingdom was happy with such occurrence, and it was clear that the new king, Aegisthus, would not rule without a challenge. His main opponent was none other than the very son of Agamemnon and Clytemnestra, who stopped at nothing in order to exercise revenge and claim the throne of Mycenae for himself. This is the story of Orestes. Orestes was a son of Agamemnon and Clytemnestra, born in Mycenae just a few years before the outbreak of the Trojan War. He also had three sisters, Chrysothemis, Electra, and Iphigenia, who was murdered on the orders of their father and ritually sacrificed during the preparation for the war against Troy. As the Achaeans spent the next 10 years campaigning in Asia Minor, young Orestes was growing up on the court of Mycenae, while his mother Clytemnestra was plotting revenge and murder of her husband. Another protagonist of the conspiracy was Aegisthus, Agamemnon's cousin and the son of Thyestes, the previous ruler of Mycenae, who after murdering King Atreus and declaring himself the king, was in turn overthrown by Agamemnon, the successor of Atreus. As the Achaean coalition eventually emerged victorious, and with the city of Troy destroyed and burned down, victorious King Agamemnon returned to Mycenae in triumph. In the meantime, Clytemnestra and Aegisthus, who had developed a love affair by this time, arranged a grand reception for the returning king, and after having a triumphant feast, had Agamemnon assassinated. Subsequently, Aegisthus and Clytemnestra arranged their marriage, and Aegisthus was declared the new king of Mycenae. The new royal couple had 3 children of their own, daughters Erigone and Helen, and a son named Aletes. Orestes, still being a teenager at the time, was according to different accounts either away from Mycenae at that moment or was quickly brought away to safety by his allies. Either way, young Orestes, being brought up during the time of war and hearing the news and stories of heroism of his father, probably looked up to Agamemnon to such extent that he never forgave the betrayal of Clytemnestra, despite the fact that his own sister was killed on the orders of his father. Another possibility is that Orestes, being the legitimate successor for the throne of Mycenae, simply wanted the crown for himself and used the situation to his advantage, regardless of what he really thought of his father. Whatever the reason, young Orestes spent the following years away from the Peloponnese, gathering support and allies for war against Aegisthus. His original base was in the region of Mount Parnassus in Phocis, which was ruled by his late father's ally Strophius, who himself was married to Agamemnon's and Menelaus' sister Anaxibia. It is unknown whether Menelaus himself had significant role in the war against Aegisthus, as he was yet to return to Sparta at the time of Agamemnon's assassination. Either way, he eventually did return to Lacedaemon, a region that was historically allied to the house of Atreus, which both Menelaus and Orestes belonged to. Back in Phocis, Orestes was being aided by his allies, chief of which was Pylades, the son of Stropius. As his father, Agamemnon was held in an extremely high regard as the Wanax of the Achaeans and the conqueror of Troy, many of the Greek rulers and princes considered Orestes as the rightful heir to the Mycenaean throne, while Aegisthus was viewed by many as the usurper. Subsequently, Orestes managed to enlarge the base of his support and apparently moved to Athens, where he was favorably received and further supplied. At the age of 20, Orestes decided to make a move and marched on Mycenae together with Pylades and the rest of his allies. What happened next is a subject of many ancient Greek plays and tragedies. In the subsequent events, even Orestes' own mother, Clytemnestra, was not spared, as the now victorious prince, although initially hesitant, ultimately decides to follow through with the full revenge, committing the matricide. As the act of one's killing of his own mother was virtually unheard of, it was not well received by the Achaean nobility and people. Quickly enough, all of Argos rose against this act of Orestes and demanded a trial. Now this might have been a later addition to the original story, as the earliest sources simply mention Orestes' victory, the killing of Aegisthus and Clytemnestra, and then his seizure of the throne of Mycenae. As the standoff between Orestes and the Argive nobles continued, Menelaus reportedly arrived from Sparta, a much-needed ally that Orestes was hoping to get on his side. However, Menelaus, after seeing that his own standing among the Achaeans was in question, as he was still blamed for the outbreak of the Trojan War, he decided not to openly side with his nephew. Moreover, Orestes also learned that Menelaus' daughter, Hermione, which was originally promised to him by the previous Spartan ruler and Menelaus' father-in-law, Tyndareus, was now promised by Menelaus not to Orestes, but to Neoptolemus, the son of Achilles. This resulted in a revenge against Menelaus, planned by Orestes and his closest ally, Pylades. As the contingent including Neoptolemus was attacked by the forces of Orestes, the son of Achilles was killed and Hermione was captured by Orestes. Allegedly, even an attempt on Menelaus' wife Helen was made, which resulted in a new standoff, this time between Orestes and his allies on one side and Menelaus and his followers on another. With the Achaeans growing impatient about the request for Orestes' trial, the situation ultimately had to be resolved. Later plays and tragedies, likely changing the story in order to add a new angle for the audience, speak of an agreement where Orestes went to the city of Athens for a neutral trial, while Menelaus returned to Sparta. Ultimately, Orestes was acquitted in Athens, and thus freed from the wrath of the Furies, the deities of vengeance, and thus ending the long-lasting curse on the royal house of Atreus. While he was away from Mycenae, Orestes learned of another plot against him, where Aegisthus' loyalists attempted to install his young son Aletes on the throne. This, however, was not to be, as Orestes soon returned with his troops, quickly crushed the uprising, had Aletes killed, and solidified his position as the undisputed king of Mycenae. Shortly afterwards, King Menelaus of Sparta passed away, and with no male successors, the whole region was placed under the direct control of Mycenae. Moreover, the local rulers of Arcadia, As the traditional allies of the house of Atreus, all pledged loyalty to Orestes, who now extended his uncontested rule over all of Argolis, Arcadia, and Laconia, making him by far the most powerful ruler in all of Peloponnese. In the next episode, we will talk about the reign of King Orestes and the new threat to his kingdom coming in the shape of another invasion by the Heraclidae. Please consider subscribing and sharing the video, as this is a one-person production and it greatly helps the visibility of the channel. Special thanks to History with Sai, Nico, Panayotis Yiannopoulos, Fred Leckie, and Estate Care for their continuous support. If you wish to become a Patreon member, please click the link in the video description. This was WanaxTV, and we'll see you again soon.